Todd, in a lot of data book pages, there's a section in there for cold bore shot, and that's kind of a phenomenon that there's a lot of controversy over in the precision community. What's your take on the cold bore shot?
We work through this a lot because the most important shots you're going to take in the tactical world or even in the hunting world is that first shot. All right, so you have to know where that bullet is actually going as opposed to where it's going to go after you fired 10, 15, 20 rounds. All right, there are several things that actually come into this. One, let's look at what I consider the biggest problem is the human behind the gun. All right, most of the time we may not give 110%, on that first shot. Every time when you lay down that first shot of the day, you need to make sure you're going through your checklist, you're straight behind the gun, your elbows blocked out, you've got the same amount of pressure pull, you load the bipod perfectly, you have all the data plugged in. You're going to find yourself, a lot of times I see guys lay down, they get ready, they know we're fixing to shoot 200-300 rounds that day. They lay down, they break that first shot, then they kind of get in behind the gun, they take another shot, then they start really getting tweaked into their position, and they start doing a good job shooting. I think a lot of cold bore problems or inconsistencies are really due to the human error. Now there is cold bore issues, depending on how much copper is stripped in your barrel. If the barrel actually coppers up pretty bad, if you remove all the copper out of that barrel every day when you clean it, it's actually got to recreate that same surface area for the bullet to fly through. All right, so you're going to have to actually let the copper be stripped off and get into the lands and grooves, all right, and get into your barrel to give you that same bearing surface, all right. That's why the bullet may hit a little high right, and then the next shot's a little closer, then by the third shot you're dead on, and then it starts grouping. That's what it's having to do. It's having to recreate that. I don't strip copper out of my gun. After I actually do my break-in process, I'll go in, and if you buy a really good high-quality barrel, most of the time they don't even need a break-in. It doesn't hurt the barrel to actually do a good break-in, though. All right, so after I do my break-in, which we fire one shot clean, do that 5 times, then we'll do a 2-shot clean, and we're stripping all the carbon out, then we take all the copper out, all right, with something like sweets or any one of the different copper solvents that you might want to find. All right, then after we actually do that, we'll go to 3 shots clean, and then we do 5 shots clean. Each one of those is a 5-shot scenario, all right, so you'll have 5 1-shots, 5 2-shots, 5 3-shots, and then I'll probably go 3 to 5. But if I get to a point where I'm not seeing any copper, I'll probably just go ahead and quit the process and go to shooting. All right, so now the other side of it is, after I do that, I just remove carbon every time. I had a gun that had about 5,500 rounds on it. All right, and it was a 1/4-minute gun. It was a real nice custom-made rifle. I shot 8,000 rounds that year with it. All right, I never took the copper out of it again. All right, just carbon cleaner every day when I got through shooting, clean the carbon. Carbon actually is what fits the barrel anyway. All right, copper is not really going to hurt the barrel per se, but the carbon is really the problem. That's what we need to get out of there. So after I removed all the carbon out every day for 8,000 rounds, at the end of that year, my gun was still sub-half-minute gun. I took all the copper out to do my test. My next 5-round group was a 2.5-inch group. All right, 43 rounds later, it came back to a 1/2-inch group, and it's still a 1/2-inch group, and it's got 13,500 rounds on it. All right, so I'm a big believer in it. I shoot 338s, extensively in my classes and for myself. I love the caliber. All right, I've got a lot of 338s that I have over 4,000 rounds on them, and they're still shooting sub-half. All right, but I never take the copper out of them. Now, if you have a weapon system that actually does, strip a lot of copper off that bullet, and you see, copper coming out the end of your barrel, I would remove it. The biggest deal is make sure you're buying good quality barrels. Broughton, Bartlein, Krieger, Lilja, Lothar Walther, all good barrel companies. All right, there's a lot of good barrel companies out there today. I like Broughton and Bartlein and Krieger. They do really good jobs. Mike Rock makes a really good barrel. All right, there's a lot of controversy whether it's button pull or a single cut rifle or you can do a hammer forged. Personally, everybody has their own idea of what's better. I like them, I like both. I like all 3. I have all 3. You get a good quality barrel, it really doesn't matter. If it's good stress relief barrel, that's where you're going to actually see some other problems that we'll talk about a little bit later. All right, Does that answer your question?
It does. So you're saying more this is a maintenance issue and referring to a clean bore, not a cold bore. So if I were to warm up on another weapon system and then get behind my gun I was shooting yesterday, I really shouldn't see a POI shift if I'm doing my part behind the gun.
Yeah, if your gun is not stripping copper, and if you removed all your copper out of your gun last night, you're probably going to get a little bit of a cold bore shift from where you finished shooting yesterday.
But we're talking, we just closed the case up on it?
Yep, you close the case up on it, I get minimal impact shift. Minimals. So it's really working for us. We're not seeing any degradation in accuracy. We're not seeing any life loss on the barrel any quicker. Actually, we seem to get a lot more from the barrels that I'm running. We get a lot of life on the barrels. We're not shooting them out. So
that really comes back to the shooter.
Yeah, so bottom line is basically we can look at it in a lot of different ways, but cold bore really goes back on the shooter. Clean bore can really be effective
yes.
against your.
Yeah, doesn't matter how good of a shooter you are at that point, because you've wet that bore, you've put a solvent in there, you've changed some of the characteristics internally. So bottom line is, would you recommend, especially maybe for the hunter or the tactician, to, if they really feel that they have to clean their gun at that point because they've got so many rounds on it, it's starting to get dirty, the environment got it dirty, would it be safe to recommend try to clean it to where you can shoot at least maybe 5 rounds and then put it back in that bag, so that at that point when you go out the door either to hunt or, depending upon what your definition of hunt is, at that point you're shooting a dirty gun or a fouled gun?
Absolutely. You know, even in shooting in competition, I'd never show up with a clean gun. You know, I'd shoot 5-10 rounds through my weapon before I actually went to the competition. If I was going to go out hunting, I would never, you know, we went up elk hunting last year. My buddy shot his elk at 1,151 meters. All right, so we would have never tried to take that shot on a clean cold bore rifle. You know, so we made sure, even when I left Canadian Texas and drove all the way to Steamboat, we made sure we had dirtied the gun here, went up there, and he made a first round hit at 1,153 meters. All right, so it's absolutely, if you want to clean your gun, that's fine. If you want to strip it all out and you're scared that your barrel will get damaged, go ahead and do it. But before you go out on that hunt or before you go to work, make sure the gun is dirty. You know, make sure you actually went out. If you know you're fixing to break that gun out and take a shot, I wouldn't recommend it, because I wouldn't do it. But I would not go out with a clean gun. I would make sure the gun was dirty. Now, you see a lot of competition guys that actually, you know, shoot and they clean the gun, you know, really well every time they put the gun up, and they shoot it on a clean cold barrel. All right, so, but they're taking that shot and they know exactly where it's going to hit and they know the adjustments. Same thing that we do at 100 meters. We actually track and we put in our data book, all right, where that first round goes, where the second one goes, where the third one goes, all right, all the way out to a mile with my 338. The clean cold bore, very good question. Some people do have problems with it. You're going to see some barrels that have more problems than others. The best advice is stay with a really good barrel company, you know, that makes good quality barrels. And then after that, treat the barrel the same way all the time. You know, I'm not saying don't clean it. I'm saying use Impro 7. It's one of the best solvents you're ever going to find for removing carbon. After that point, it's up to you whether you want to take out that copper or not. You know, if you remove the copper, it's got to lay that same bearing surface down. All right, so to be consistent, it's going to have to, if it's stripping any copper, it's got to lay that same bearing surface down for your bullet to have the same effect downrange. Make sense?